Colombia's involvement in the Korean War had a major impact on the strength of their military and strategy for years to come. In 1950, the world was in a very tense state after the Second World War ended. In 1947, the Cold War began, which also seemed to be the mass rise of communist countries. The United Nations and countries such as the United States sent troops to countries battling communism to aid in the democratic side. The United Nations was a worldwide organization created after World War II in 1945. In the case of Korea, the United Nations planned to protect the democratic South by fighting communist North in small country units. They organized groups such as the Colombian Battalion to contribute to their efforts of containing this war in just Korea. The Colombians would fight alongside the Americans against the Chinese, who was trying to defend the Communist North Party in Korea. In 1950, Laureano Gomez became president of Colombia. With simultaneous pressures from the United States and the United Nations, he ultimately was the one who decided to send Colombian troops to Korea. He had multiple reasons for this, such as he believed it would improve the relations between the United States as they would be more inclined to help them in the future, and he also wanted to reaffirm the position of Colombia as a relevant nation globally and also in the United Nations. Lastly, he wanted to create a good naval and land military force to fight on the side of the United Nations in the Korean War. The United Nations and the United States had to help Colombia's military. Under the Truman administration, the United States sent their personal troops of experienced trainers, which was led by Commander Texan Major Williams T. Gordon. They also shipped their military equipment and 9 Latino men to Colombia so they could teach them with the correct equipment. Anyone to volunteer for the Colombian Battalion went through extensive physical training, weaponry training, and small unit tactics seminars. Although Colombians were succeeding in Korea, they did not get out with just ease, and many lives were lost as many vital mistakes were made. For example, they arrived in Korea without enough arms and depended on the UN command to ship all of their supplies to them. Another mistake was at the Battle of Old Baldy in 1953, where 95 Colombians died due to the insufficient amount of men to capture Hill 180 of the Chinese, which they were ordered to do so. In the Colombians also made similar mistakes of their own in Porkchop Hill, as they did not have enough men to defend their post when the Chinese attacked them. However, they did adapt to conditions in Korea really quickly. Also, since their army was volunteer, all of their men were committed and most wanted to fight for the UN and democracy. Therefore, there was a sense of motivation in the men, which led to their success. For example, according to the image of the Colombian men arriving in Korea, they seemed to be excited and happy to be there, which conveys their motivation to fight. Not only did the Colombian participation in the Korean War increase their domestic prestige due to their success, but they also became a more important country in regards to international affairs. This was only the beginning of Colombia's long involvement in the Middle East affairs of trying to preserve peace. The United States also aided in Colombia military, led to Colombia adopting the structure for the army with a headquarters company, 3 rifles company, and a heavy weapons company. The United States also helped with the creation of the modern international security program in Colombia, which still exists today. Many officers also gained national status and experience, such as Gustavo Rojas Pinilla. These men would go on to defend Colombia in many other wars and conflicts. In 1960s, there would be an internal conflict, which was the rise of the guerrillas, which was Colombia's own communist party, and reluctantly, the United States supplied military aid and helped defend the Communist Party. Therefore, the Korean War strengthened Colombia's military, global prestige, and the relationships with the United Nations and the United States.